Most people spray this on a squeaky hinge and put it right back on the shelf. Your grandmother knew it did the work of a dozen products you're paying full price for today. Stick with me to the very end because the last one is the original secret this can was built for, the single reason it exists at all. And once you hear it, you'll never look at that little blue and yellow can the same way again. One honest word before we open the lid, because I'll always tell you straight. This is the flammable kind, so keep it well away from the stove and any open flame. Crack a window when you spray indoors, and give plastics and rubber a quick test spot first, since it can soften the cheap ones. That's your whole warning. Let's begin. Start with the stovetop. Your grandmother's burners caught the same baked-on brown crust everybody's do, and she didn't keep 3 scrubbing creams under the sink for it. A light spray on the cool burner, 5 minutes to sit, then the grease that looked welded on wiped away with a sponge. Here's what nobody explains. That can is more than half mineral spirits, a real solvent, cousin to the stuff that thins paint. And grease is just oil gone hard and stubborn. The solvent dissolves it back into something soft enough to wipe off. One honest catch: never do this near a lit burner or a pilot light. You wait till it's stone cold and the flame is off. While we're on stuck-on messes, look at your baking trays. That black scorched ring on the bottom of the sheet pan, the one that survived a dozen washes. Same idea, same reason. A spray, a couple of minutes for the solvent to creep under the burnt-on layer and break its grip, then a scrub and a proper wash in hot soapy water afterward to take every trace off before food touches it again. Cheaper than the special baked-on grease remover they sell you, which is mostly solvent anyway. Speaking of things that won't let go, sticky label gunk. The price tag fused onto a new vase, the gummy ghost a peeled sticker leaves behind, glue that laughs at your thumbnail. A little spray straight onto the residue, a minute to wait, and it wipes clean. Adhesive is just a sticky polymer, and the solvent breaks it down so it stops clinging. Your grandmother never bought a tube of goo remover. She had the answer already on the bench. And here's one that feels like magic the first time you try it. Crayon on the wall. Every mother has stood frozen in front of a purple scribble on the good paint. A spray onto the marks, a gentle rub with a soft cloth, then a damp rag to lift the oily film afterward. Crayon is mostly wax, and that solvent dissolves wax beautifully. It grabs the crayon and lets the paint stay put instead of you scrubbing both raw. Let me stay with stains a moment because this next one surprises people. Lipstick ground into a drinking glass, that waxy red smear that survives the dishwasher. A small spray, a minute to sit, a wipe with a soft cloth, then wash the glass properly in hot soapy water. Lipstick is wax and oil and pigment all at once. The solvent cuts the wax and the whole stain comes away with it. The same goes for a ring of dried hair dye splattered on the bathroom counter. It lifts the same way, as long as you catch it before it sets into the surface for good. Now switch gears with me from dissolving to gliding, because this can does 2 completely different jobs, and here's the other one. A squeaky door hinge, that one door that announces every midnight trip to the kitchen. A short spray right on the hinge pin, then swing the door back and forth to work it down into the joint. A squeak is just dry metal grinding dry metal. The light oil left behind once the solvent evaporates coats both faces so they slide silent. That same gliding trick saves a stubborn zipper. The jacket zip that catches halfway and won't budge in either direction. A tiny spray on the teeth, then run the slider up and down a few times. The teeth catch when they're dry or lightly corroded, and the oil film lets the slider pass clean through. Works on a tent flap, a sleeping bag, an old suitcase that's seized shut, and it's the very same idea on a sticking drawer or a bulky curtain rod. The wooden drawer that screams and jumps when you yank it, the curtain that bunches and won't slide. A light pass where the parts rub, then work them back and forth to spread it. Less friction, less fight. One honest note here. On the cheap plastic runners some modern drawers use, test a hidden spot first because the solvent can soften certain plastics. On the old wood ones your grandmother had, no trouble at all. Here's a clever one for the cook. Scissors gone stiff at the joint, snipping like they're tired. A little spray right at the pivot point where the two blades cross, then open and close them a dozen times to work it in, and wipe the excess so it never touches your food. The friction that made them drag melts away, and they cut clean again. Now let me take you out to the garden, because she was just as thrifty out there. Garden tools, the pruners and shears that go orange and stiff after sitting in a damp shed all winter. A spray on the moving joints, and a wipe down of the metal before you put them away. The oil film does two jobs at once. It loosens the hinge and lays down a barrier that keeps moisture off the steel so rust never gets a foothold. That's water displacement, pushing the water off the metal, and it's the thing this can was actually invented to do, which is a clue I want you to hold on to for the end. That same rust shield saves a bicycle chain. A slow spin of the pedals while you mist the chain evenly, a few minutes to settle, then, and this part matters, wipe off every bit of excess. Here's the catch most people miss. Leave it gummy and it actually grabs grit off the road, so a thin protective film is the goal, never a dripping mess. Wiped down, it repels the moisture that rusts a chain solid over a wet winter. And that water-displacing trick is exactly why your grandmother's good shears, her hinges, her metal fence joints never seized. A wipe of the oil where the rust wants to start, especially before the rainy season, and the moisture simply can't reach the bare metal to do its damage. Now here's a real, wait, that works one. Waterproofing canvas shoes. Your grandmother would mist a thin, even coat over a pair of canvas shoes before a wet walk, let them dry a few minutes, and the rain that should have soaked straight through just beat it up and rolled off. It's that water-displacing oil again, this time forming a barrier on the fabric so water can't wick in. A quick rescue, not forever, but free, where the shoe shop sells a spendy waterproofing spray doing the identical thing. Let me tell you about leather, because here's where it gets genuinely interesting. A stiff old baseball glove, hard as a board from years in the garage. A light coat worked into the leather with a cloth softens it back to supple. Then you tuck a ball in the pocket and band it shut overnight to shape it. The oil sinks in and feeds the dried-out leather the way a conditioner would. The same idea rescues a scuffed shoe or a tired bag in a pinch. Here's one for anyone with a teenager and a pack of gum stuck in hair. The panic moment, the one that usually ends in scissors. Instead, a small spray on the gum and the hair around it, a minute to let it break down the stickiness, and then it combs right out before a proper wash. The solvent dissolves the gum's grip so it slides free of the strands instead of tearing them. The same trick lifts tar off a shoe sole or sap welded to outdoor furniture. Now, your grandmother was at war with the critters too, and the can fought on her side without a single poison. Ants marching toward the pet's food bowl, a thin ring of it around the base of the bowl, never the inside, never near the food. Ants won't cross that slick, strong-smelling line, so the food stays the dog's. A barrier, not a killer, which is exactly why it's the one you'd reach for with grandkids and pets underfoot. That same idea keeps slugs off the plant pots. A thin band around the outside of the pot, down near the base where they climb. The slick surface gives them nothing to grip, so they can't haul themselves up to chew your seedlings, and you keep it off the soil and the plant itself. Free, and it harms nothing. It just turns the rim into a wall they won't climb. And it's the very same wall that turns away the spiders that creep along the baseboards and the wasps eyeing the corners of the shed. A light coat where they crawl and where they'd start a nest, the smell and the slick surface make the spot uninviting, so they go bother somebody else. Not a fog of insecticide, just a place they'd rather not be. Here's a strange and satisfying one: dusty artificial plants. The fake fern on the mantel gone gray and sad with dust. A light mist onto a cloth, never soaking the plant, then wipe the leaves. It lifts the old dust and leaves the faintest sheen that actually slows the next layer settling, so they look alive again and stay clean longer. Let me give you one more around the house. A shower head clogged to a sad dribble. Where the hard waters left a chalky mineral crust blocking the little nozzles, a spray to soak the face of it a few minutes, then an old toothbrush to work the loosened deposits free, and a good rinse with warm water. The solvent breaks down the greasy film holding that scale in place so it scrubs off instead of fighting you. And here's a clean little one: sticky food containers. The plastic tub with old label glue or that tacky, greasy film that never quite washes off. A spray, a minute, a wipe, then a thorough wash in hot, soapy water to clear every trace before you use it again. The solvent breaks the stickiness, the soap carries the solvent away, and you've rescued a container you'd have thrown out. Now think back to the workshop. A paintbrush left to dry hard as a rock, bristles fused into a useless club, the kind you'd normally toss straight in the bin. A generous soak of the bristles, a few minutes to let the solvent soften the dried paint, a gentle flex back and forth, then a wash in hot soapy water. The same solvent that dissolved the crayon and the gum dissolves dried paint binder too, and the brush comes back to life. Your grandmother didn't replace what she could revive. And here, finally, is number one, the one I told you to wait for, and it's not really a trick at all. It's the reason this can was ever born. Look at the name on it. The WD stands for water displacement, and the 40 was the 40th attempt, because a chemist back in the early 50s was trying over and over to mix something that would push water off metal and stop it rusting, and on his 40th try he finally got it. That was the whole invention. One job, shoving water off steel so it wouldn't corrode. It was made to protect the skin of missiles from rust, and it worked so well the workers started sneaking cans home to fix everything that squeaked and stuck and rusted in their own houses. Every single thing I just handed you, the silenced hinge, the freed zipper, the waterproofed shoe, the rust kept off the shears, every one of them grows out of that one humble idea: a thin oil that displaces water and won't let go. They took that single honest can, the one your grandmother kept on the bench, and reached for 100 different ways, and over the years they taught the rest of us that a real household needs a separate specialized bottle for each of those jobs: a degreaser, a lubricant, a goo remover, a rust spray, a leather feed, a glass cleaner, each in its own clever packaging, each with its own price. It was never that the one can couldn't do it. It's that there's no money in selling you one of something you only buy once. So that's the whole story, laid bare. A wall of bottles in the store, and one little blue and yellow can on your grandmother's bench that quietly did all of it. If even one of these saves you a trip down that aisle, do me one small favor and tap that like button. It costs you nothing, same as the can would have, and it's the only reason the next person ever hears any of this. Subscribe and stay close, because I've got a whole shed full of this kind of thing, and I'm nowhere near done. I'll see you in the next one. Now go find that dusty can on the shelf and go look at the price of everything it just replaced.